Commander Lyra Vexenine stood before the great crystal window of the High Council chamber, watching the twin suns of Kepler 44 to be paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. The floating cities of her homeworld drifted peacefully through the clouds. Below, their crystal spires catching the light like jewels. It was beautiful, serene, and soon it would all be gone. The Vorthach Empire had already consumed 12 of their colonies. Each world died the same way. First came the dark ships, blocking out the stars. Then the machines descended, stripping away everything that made a planet alive. The Vorthach left nothing behind but empty rock floating in space. Lyra turned back to face the council members. Their blue skin seemed paler than usual, and their large eyes reflected the fear they all felt. The eldest among them, High Counselor Theron, spoke in the soft, musical voice of their people. The Defense Fleet reports the same message from every system. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our ships cannot match their speed. They consume our worlds faster than we can evacuate them. Then we must ask for help, Lyra said. The words felt strange in her mouth. The Zelani had always been peaceful, always solved their problems through wisdom and patience. They had never needed to fight, never needed to ask others to fight for them. Counselor Mirren shook her head, her long fingers trembling. Who would help us? Every species in the galaxy knows of the Vorthach. If others could stop them, they would. Have done so already. We could send a message to the Galactic Union, suggested another counselor. Perhaps if we all work together. The Union has already tried, Lyra replied. 3 different alliance fleets have engaged the Vorthach. All were destroyed. The machine empire grows stronger with each victory. Silence filled the chamber. Outside, the sounds of daily life continued. Children played in the floating gardens. Artists created their sculptures of living light. Engineers tended to the harmony systems that kept their cities stable in the clouds. None of them knew that death was coming for their world. High Counselor Theron stood slowly. His ancient frame seemed to carry the weight of their entire civilization. Then we have only one choice. We must send a message to every corner of the galaxy. We must hope that somewhere, someone has found a way to fight them. A plea for help? Mirren asked. Broadcasting our weakness to every species that might hear? Broadcasting our need? Lyra corrected. If we die in silence, no one learns from our fate. If we call out, perhaps someone will answer. Perhaps someone will find a way to stop the Vorthach before they consume everything. The vote was close, but it passed. Within hours, the most powerful transmitters on Kepler 44b began sending a message across the galaxy. It traveled on every frequency they knew, in every language they had recorded. The message was simple. This is the Zelani High Council of Kepler 44b. Our worlds are being destroyed by the Vorthach Empire. We have tried to defend ourselves, but we are not warriors. We are artists, engineers, and philosophers. We cannot stop them alone. If any species in the galaxy has found a way to fight the machines, please help us. We do not ask for conquest or glory. We ask only for the chance to continue existing. The message repeated over and over, racing through space at the speed of light. It would take months to reach the distant corners of the galaxy. The Vorthach fleet would arrive in 3 months. Lyra could only hope their plea would find someone in time, far across the galaxy. In a small yellow star system that most civilizations marked as uninhabitable, the exploration vessel U.S. Horizon drifted through the darkness between worlds. The ship was not large by galactic standards, but it was built tough. It had to be. Humans had learned to build things that could survive. Dr. Kane Murphy sat in the communications bay, monitoring the deep space arrays for signs of intelligent life. It was boring work most of the time. Space was vast and mostly empty. But Earth's government wanted to know if humanity was alone. So Kane listened to the stars every day. When the alien signal first came through, Kane thought it was equipment failure. The computers had never registered anything like it before, but as the message continued, repeating in dozens of different languages, Kane realized what he was hearing. Captain Grant, you need to hear this. Kane called over the ship's communication system. Captain Lisa Grant arrived in the communications bay within minutes. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. She had spent most of her adult life in space, exploring the edges of human knowledge. But she had never expected to hear something like this. Kane played the message again. The translation computers worked frantically to decode the alien languages. Most of it was unclear, but certain words came through. Clearly help, destroyed, empire, and please. Someone's in trouble, Grant said quietly. Big trouble, Kane agreed. The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. It's almost 8 months away at maximum speed. Grant studied the star charts on the main display. Kepler 442b was listed in their databases as a potentially habitable world. The conditions looked pleasant enough. Warm temperatures, calm weather, plenty of water. It was the kind of place humans called a garden world, said Lieutenant Jack Davis from the tactical station. I've been analyzing the signal strength and transmission pattern. This isn't just a local distress call. They're broadcasting to the entire galaxy. Desperate, Grant murmured. What kind of threat makes someone that desperate? Engineer Sam Rodriguez looked up from his console. I've been trying to decode more of the message. There are references to something called the Vorthach Empire, and to worlds being consumed or destroyed. Grant made her decision quickly. She had always been someone who acted when others needed help. It was why she had joined the space service, why she had volunteered. For long-range exploration, someone was calling for help, and she could not ignore that call. Set course for Kepler 442, she ordered. Maximum speed. Ma'am, Davis said carefully, that will take us far outside our normal patrol area. We'll be out of communication with Earth for over a year. Then we'll have to handle whatever we find on our own, Grant replied. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've received an alien distress signal and are responding. Include all the data we've collected. As the UES Horizon changed course and began its long journey across space, Grant wondered what they would find when they arrived. The aliens' message spoke of an empire that consumed worlds, of a threat they could not fight alone. Earth's databases had no record of any Vorthach empire, but Earth's databases had no record of most things in the galaxy. Humans had only been traveling between stars for 50 years. They had found empty worlds, dead worlds, and worlds with simple life, but they had never found anyone to talk to. Someone was talking, and they were asking for help. Grant looked at the star charts again. According to their records, Kepler 44b should not be able to support advanced civilization. The gravity was too low. The atmosphere was too thin. The radiation levels were too high. Most human scientists had classified it as marginally habitable at best, but someone lived there. Someone advanced enough to send messages across the galaxy. Someone who was afraid enough to ask the entire universe for help. Grant did not know it yet, but the galaxy was about to learn something important. When humans heard a call for help, they answered. Even when the call came from a world their computers said was impossible. Even when the threat was something they had never faced before. Even when the odds were against them, the UES Horizon flew through the darkness toward a distant star, carrying with it the first news that Earth was not alone. And somewhere in that distant system, beings unlike any human had ever imagined waited for an answer to their desperate plea. The UES Horizon had been traveling for 7 months when they finally reached the edge of Zelani space. Captain Grant stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as their sensors picked up something impossible. Ship was waiting for them. The alien vessel looked nothing like human designs. It was smooth and curved like a piece of art, made from what appeared to be living crystal. Soft blue light pulsed along its surface in gentle patterns. It was beautiful, but it also looked fragile. Grant had seen children's toys that seemed more sturdy. They're sending a signal, reported Dr. Kane Murphy from his station. Multiple languages again, but the translation computers are getting better at understanding them. Put it through, Grant ordered. A voice filled the bridge, soft and musical like wind chimes. Human vessel, we are grateful you have come. I am Ambassador Thren of the Zelani High Council. We have prepared a meeting place where our species can safely interact. Grant exchanged glances with her crew. The aliens knew they were human. was interesting. It meant they had been studying Earth's response message during the long journey here. "This is Captain Lisa Grant of the UES Horizon. We received your distress signal and came to help. We're ready to meet when you are." The meeting took place on a small space station that the Zelani had quickly built in the empty space between their worlds and human territory. It was another work of art, all flowing curves and gentle lights. Grant brought a small team with her, Dr. Murphy for his scientific knowledge, Dr. Elena Ross, who specialized in understanding different cultures, and Chief Petty Officer Mike Chen. For security, when they first saw the Zelani, Grant understood why their ship looked so delicate. The aliens themselves appeared fragile. They were tall and thin, much taller than humans, but with bones that seemed hollow like birds. Their skin was translucent blue, and Grant could see faint patterns of light moving beneath it. Their eyes were huge and dark, taking up nearly half their faces. Ambassador Thren greeted them in the station's central chamber. The room was designed to be comfortable for both species, but Grant noticed the gravity was set very low. She felt light on her feet, almost like she might float away. "Welcome, beings of Earth," Thren said. His voice was even more musical in person. "We are honored that you have traveled so far to answer our call. We're glad to help," Grant replied. "But we need to understand what we're dealing with. Tell us about this Vorthach Empire." Thren's large eyes grew sad. "They are machines, Captain. Grant. Not beings like us, but artificial minds in metal bodies. They appeared in our region of space 5 years ago and began consuming our worlds. They strip away everything useful and leave nothing behind." Dr. Ross leaned forward in her chair. "How many worlds have they taken? 12 of our colonies are gone completely. 3 more are under attack now. They will reach our homeworld in less than 2 months. Grant felt her jaw tighten. 2 months was not much time. "What kind of defenses do you have?" "We have energy shields that can protect our data. Cities for a time. We have ships that can move quickly through space. But we are not. ... Double quotes. Thren struggled to find the word. "We are not warriors. We have never needed to be." "Everyone needs to be sometimes," Chief Chen said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken, and his voice sounded rough compared to the musical Zelani speech. Thren looked at Chen with curiosity. "You speak as one who has seen battle." "Many battles," Chen confirmed. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years." "Good at it." The statement seemed to shock the Zelani present. Thren translated quickly for the others, and Grant heard gasps and whispers in their musical language. "Thousands of years?" Thren asked. "But surely your species must have evolved beyond such things. Surely you have found peace." Dr. Ross and Dr. Murphy exchanged glances. This was going to be a difficult conversation. "Ambassador Thren," Dr. Ross said gently, "we need to explain something about Earth and about humans. Our world is very different from yours." She activated a small, holographic projector and showed images of Earth. The Zelani watched in growing horror as they saw hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and tornadoes. They saw footage of lions hunting zebras, sharks attacking seals, and humans climbing mountains in blizzards. "Your planet tries to kill you," Thren whispered. "How do you survive?" "We adapt," Grant said simply. "We learn to fight back. Everything on Earth is fighting to survive, so we learn to fight too." Dr. Murphy pulled up more data. "Earth's gravity is twice what you're comfortable with. Our atmosphere has oxygen levels that would poison most species. We have temperature, swings that range from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable." "And you evolved in these conditions?" another Zelani asked. "Didn't just evolve in them," Chen said. "We conquered them. Humans live in every climate on Earth. We've been to the bottom of our deepest oceans, in the top of our highest mountains. We've even left our planet and built homes in the vacuum of space." The Zelani were quiet for a long time. Grant could see them struggling to understand what they had heard. Finally, Thren spoke again. "The Galactic databases list your world as uninhabitable. We assumed you were from a colony, that your true homeworld was somewhere more ... suitable for life." "Earth is our home," Grant said. It's the only one we've ever known, and yes, it's dangerous. But that danger made us strong. Dr. Ross activated another display, this one showing human history. The Zelani watched battles, revolutions, and wars spanning thousands of years. They saw humans building weapons, fortifications, and armies. They saw cities destroyed and rebuilt dozens of times. You fight each other, Thren observed, his voice full of sadness. Sometimes, Dr. Ross admitted, but we also work together when we face a common threat. And we've learned a lot about warfare over the centuries. Perhaps too much, another Zelani murmured. Grant leaned forward. Ambassador Thren, I need you to understand something. We came here because you asked for help. We're willing to fight this Vorthach Empire for you, but we need to know if you're willing to fight alongside us. We do not know how, Thren said. We can teach you, Chen offered. Basic tactics, defensive positions, how to make your ships more effective in combat. The Zelani looked uncomfortable. But if we learn to fight, do we not become like the Vorthach? Do we not lose what makes us us? Dr. Ross smiled gently. Learning to defend yourself doesn't make you evil, Ambassador. Humans fight when we have to, but we also create art, music, and literature. We explore space because we want to learn, not because we want to conquer. Your people sent a message asking for help, Grant added. That tells me you value life, that you want to protect your families and your culture. Those are good reasons. To fight, Thren was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke again, his voice was determined. What do you need from us? Information about your defenses, your technology, and the Vorthach capabilities, Grant replied. We also need to see your homeworld, understand how your people live and what we're protecting. And we need time, Dr. Murphy added. Months. Isn't long to prepare for a war. Thren nodded slowly. We will provide whatever you need. But Captain Grant, you must understand. We have never asked anyone to die for us before. The thought that you might not survive. Ambassador, Grant interrupted gently. Humans have been risking our lives for each other since the beginning. Of our species, sometimes for our families, sometimes for our friends, and sometimes for strangers who need help. That's also what makes us human. The Zelani were peaceful, artistic, and incredibly advanced in many ways. But they had never needed to fight for anything. Their world was a paradise where conflict was rare and violence was almost unknown. The humans, on the other hand, came from a world where everything was a struggle. It evolved to be tough, adaptable, and aggressive when necessary. They knew how to fight because they had never been given a choice. Now, two very different species would have to work together to face an enemy that neither could defeat alone. The Zelani had the technology and resources. The humans had the knowledge and will to fight. Grant just hoped it would be enough. The floating cities of Kepler 440b were even more beautiful than Captain Grant had imagined. Crystal spires reached toward the clouds while gardens of impossible colors drifted through the air around them. Soft music played from hidden sources, and the very air seemed to shimmer with peace and harmony. It was a paradise. And in 6 weeks, the Vorthach would arrive to destroy it all. Grant stood on the observation deck of the main Zelani military facility, watching their pilots practice. Formations in the sky below, the Zelani ships moved with grace and precision, dancing through the clouds like birds. They were beautiful to watch, but Grant knew beauty would not stop the machines that were coming. Their flying is perfect for ceremonies, said Colonel Ryan. Brooks, who had arrived 3 days earlier with a small team of human reinforcements, but ceremonies don't win battles. Brooks was a career military officer who had fought in the border conflicts near Jupiter. He was shorter than Grant, but broader, with scars on his hands from years of combat training. The Zelani found him frightening, which bothered him more than he let on. How are they doing with the combat training? Grant asked. Better than I expected, Brooks admitted. They learn fast and they're not afraid of dying. That surprised me. I thought peaceful species would be cowards. They're not cowards, Grant said. They just never had to fight before. Below them, Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster was working with a group of Zelani pilots. Foster had been a fighter pilot before joining the exploration service, and she understood both flying and fighting. Grant watched as she demonstrated an attack pattern. Her small human ship diving and rolling between the larger Zelani vessels. The Zelani pilots tried to copy her movements, but their ships wobbled and shook. One of them spun completely around and nearly crashed into another. Foster's voice came over the communication system, patient but firm.
What?
Remember, you're not dancing anymore. You're hunting.
What?
The enemy won't wait for you to get into perfect formation. You need to hit them fast and hard, then get away before they can hit back. One of the Zelani pilots, a young female named Kira, responded in her musical voice. But, Lieutenant Foster, these movements feel wrong. They go against everything we were taught about flying. I know, Foster replied, but the Vorthach don't care what you were taught. They'll destroy you if you fly like you're in a parade. You need to be unpredictable. Grant turned away from the window and walked deeper into the facility. The main command center had been completely redesigned in the past month. Human engineers had worked with Zelani technicians to install new systems and displays. The result was a mixture of human efficiency and Zelani elegance that somehow worked well. Tech Specialist Carlos White was hunched over a workstation with 3 Zelani engineers. They had been working for days to modify Zelani energy weapons, trying to make them more effective against Vorthach armor. The problem is power regulation, White was explaining. Your weapons are designed to be safe, to never use more energy than necessary. But against heavy armor, you need to overload the system. Push it beyond normal limits. One of the Zelani engineers, an elderly male named Vorn, looked worried. But if we remove the safety systems, the weapons could explode. They could kill the user. Sometimes that's a risk you have to take, White said gently. In combat, a weapon that might kill you is better than a weapon that definitely won't stop the enemy. The concept clearly troubled the Zelani, but they continued working. Grant could see they were trying hard to understand human thinking even when it went against everything they believed. In another section of the facility, Dr. Murphy was studying Zelani medical technology with a team of their healers. The Zelani had developed incredible healing systems that could repair almost any injury, but they had never dealt with combat wounds. Oh, your healing technology is amazing, Murphy was saying to the lead healer, a graceful female named Senna. But it's designed for accidents and illness. Battle injuries are different. There are often multiple wounds happening at the same time, and they need to be treated under pressure. Sena's large eyes reflected her confusion. We've never seen such injuries. Our people do not hurt each other. Well, the Vorthach will hurt them, Murphy said bluntly. We need to modify your healing systems to work on a battlefield. We need to train your healers to work while people are shooting at them. Grant continued her tour of the facility, checking on the various training programs they had established. In the combat training area, Marine Sergeant Tony Martinez was teaching Zelani security forces how to fight with their hands and simple weapons. The Zelani were struggling with the concept of violence. Their movements were too gentle, too careful. Martinez demonstrated a basic attack combination, his movements sharp and efficient. When the Zelani tried to copy him, they looked like they were performing a slow dance. You're thinking too much, Martinez said to a group of young Zelani males. Combat isn't about being perfect. It's about being fast and decisive. Your enemy won't give you time to plan the perfect move. One of the trainees, a tall Zelani named Kalen, raised his hand. But Sergeant Martinez, if we act without thinking, how do we avoid making mistakes? You make mistakes, Martinez replied. Everyone makes mistakes in combat. The difference is that humans have learned to keep fighting even when things go wrong. You need to learn that too. Grant found Dr. Ross in the Cultural Exchange Center, where she was documenting the differences between human and Zelani thinking. Ross had been interviewing both species, trying to understand how their different worlds had shaped their minds. How are they adapting? Grant asked. Ross looked up from her notes. It's fascinating and heartbreaking at the same time. The Zelani are incredibly intelligent, but their intelligence evolved for cooperation and creation. They're having to rewire thousands of years of peaceful thinking. And the humans, we're adapting better, but we're also changing them just by being here. Some of the younger Zelani are starting to think more like us. They're becoming harder, more suspicious. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, Grant nodded. She had noticed the change too. The Zelani, who worked closely with humans, were beginning to lose some of their musical quality in their voices. So they moved differently, more purposefully. They were becoming warriors, but they were also becoming less Zelani. A soft chime announced an incoming message. Grant activated the communication system, and Commander Lyra's image appeared on the screen. The Zelani military leader looked tired, and her usual calm had been replaced by something harder. Captain Grant, our long-range sensors have detected the Vorthach fleet. They are larger than we expected. Grant felt her stomach tighten. How much larger? Nearly twice the size of previous invasion forces. Over 300 ships, including several we have never seen before. They will arrive in 4 weeks. The room went quiet. 4 weeks was less time than they had hoped for, and a larger enemy force meant their preparations might not be enough. Grant asked. Lyra's expression grew sad. Some are afraid. Some are angry. Some have begun to speak of fighting to the death rather than surrender. A month ago, no Zelani would have said such things. Grant understood what Lyra meant. The humans had not just brought military knowledge to the Zelani. They had brought the concept of righteous anger, of fighting for principles even when victory seemed impossible. It was a human way of thinking, and it was changing the Zelani in ways that might never be undone. We'll be ready, Grant promised. Your people are learning fast. Yes, Lyra agreed. They are learning to be something they have never been before. I hope we do not lose ourselves in the process. After the call ended, Grant stood alone in the command center, looking out at the beautiful floating cities. In 4 weeks, this peaceful world would become a battlefield. The Zelani would either learn to fight like humans, or they would die like the peaceful beings they had always been. Grant just hoped that when the fighting was over, there would still be something left of the gentle, artistic people who had asked for help. War had a way of changing everyone it touched, and not all of those changes were good. The first sign of the Vorthach fleet was the stars going dark, one by one. The points of light in the night sky disappeared as massive ships moved between Kepler 4b, and the distant suns. Captain Grant stood in the command center, watching the censored displays as more enemy vessels appeared every minute. 312 ships confirmed, reported Navigation Officer Kelly Johnson. And they're still coming through the jump point? Grant felt her mouth go dry. The Vorthach fleet was even larger than their worst estimates. The enemy ships were huge, angular things that looked more like flying factories than warships. Each one was twice the size of the largest Zelani vessel, and their dark metal hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They're moving. Into attack formation, said Lieutenant Jack Davis from the tactical station. Estimated time to orbital bombardment is 6 hours. Commander Lyra stood beside Grant, her blue skin pale with fear and determination. Over the past month, the Zelani leader had changed dramatically. She moved with purpose now, spoke with authority, and her large eyes had lost some of their gentle innocence. Our defensive satellites are in position, Lyra reported.
Oh.
All civilian populations have been moved to the underground shelters. Shield generators are at full power. Grant nodded. They had done everything possible to prepare, but looking at the size of the enemy fleet, she wondered if it would be enough. The combined human Zelani force had only 47 ships, most of them lightly armed Zelani vessels with hastily installed weapons upgrades. Captain called Dr. Murphy from his station. I'm detecting something strange about the Vorthach ships. Their energy signatures don't match what we expected from pure machines. What do you mean? Grant asked. There are organic components in their systems. Not just artificial intelligence, but actual living tissue integrated with the machinery. I think the Vorthach are cyborgs, not pure machines. Grant filed that information away. Might be useful later if there was a later. The bombardment began exactly 6 hours after the fleet's arrival. Beams of purple energy lanced down from the Vorthach ships, striking the planetary shields with tremendous force. The shields held, but Grant could see them flickering under the assault. Shield strength at 80% and falling, reported Engineer Rodriguez from the shield control station. At this rate, they'll break through in 4 hours. Time to launch the counterattack, Grant decided. All ships, this is Captain Grant. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. The combined fleet rose from the surface like an angry swarm. Zelani ships moved with their natural grace, but now their movements had purpose and aggression that had never existed before. Human-trained pilots flew attack patterns that confused and surprised the Vorthach. Lieutenant Commander Foster led the first wave in her modified fighter. Her voice crackled over the communication system as she dove toward the nearest Vorthach ship. Remember your training. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and get out before they can respond. The Zelani pilots followed her lead, their ships dancing through space and patterns the Vorthach had never seen before. Energy beams flashed between the vessels as the battle began in earnest. On the surface, Sergeant Martinez prepared his mixed force of human Marines and Zelani ground troops for the landings that would surely come. The Vorthach always sent ground forces to strip mine a planet after breaking through the orbital defenses. They'll come down in those big transport ships, Martinez explained to his troops. Our job is to hit them while they're landing before they can establish a foothold. Kalen, the young Zelani, who had struggled with combat training, checked his weapon nervously. Over the past month, he had learned to fight, but he still looked uncomfortable with the energy rifle in his hands. Sergeant Martinez, Kalen said, "What if we cannot stop them? Then we make them pay for every meter of ground," Martinez replied. "That's what humans do. We never give up, even when we're losing." In space, the battle was not going well. The Vorthach ships were heavily armored and well armed. Several Zelani vessels had already been destroyed, and the UES Horizon was taking heavy damage from multiple enemy ships. Hull breach on Deck 3 called Tech Specialist White over the damage reports. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely. Grant gripped her command chair as another enemy blast shook the ship. Return fire, all weapons. The Horizon's guns fired continuously, their modified energy beams striking Vorthach ships again and again. But the enemy armor was thick, and the human ship's weapons seemed to barely scratch the dark metal hulls. "Captain," called Davis from Tactical, "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the lead Vorthach ship. I think they're preparing some kind of superweapon." Grant's blood ran cold. A superweapon could destroy the entire planet in one shot. All ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Every ship in the combined fleet turned toward the massive Vorthach command ship. Energy beams from dozens of vessels struck its hull, but the dark armor absorbed most of the damage. The weapon continued to charge. On the planet's surface, first Vorthach landing ships broke through the weakened shields. They were enormous. Transports that looked like flying pyramids, each one carrying hundreds of machine soldiers. Martinez watched them descend through his binoculars. "Here they come. Remember, wait until they start unloading, then hit them with everything we have." The landing ships touched down in the crystal fields outside the main city. Ramps lowered, and Vorthach soldiers began marching out. They moved in perfect formation, their metal bodies gleaming in the sunlight. Each soldier was 7 feet tall and armed with weapons that could cut through solid rock. "Now," Martinez shouted into his communicator, hidden weapons positions opened fire from all around the landing zone. Modified Zelani energy cannons, operated by mixed human-Zelani crews, sent beams of coherent light into the enemy ranks. Vorthach soldiers fell, their armor pierced by the unexpected firepower. But there were so many of them. For every soldier that fell, 2 more took its place. The machines advanced steadily toward the city, their return fire destroying the hidden positions one by one. In space, the superweapon was almost ready to fire. Grant could see the energy building in the command ship's main cannon, a purple glow that grew brighter every second. "We're not going to stop it in time," Davis reported. "The weapon will fire in less than 2 minutes." Grant made a decision that she knew would probably kill her and her crew. All stop. Reverse course. Maximum speed, directly at the command ship. "Ma'am?" Davis asked in confusion. "We're going to ram them," Grant said calmly. "It's the only way to stop that weapon." The UES Horizon turned and accelerated directly toward the massive Vorthach vessel. Enemy fire concentrated on the human ship, tearing holes in its hull and destroying systems throughout the vessel. Hull integrity failing, White reported. We won't survive the impact. We don't need to survive, Grant replied. We just need to stop that weapon. At the last second, something unexpected happened. Commander Lyra's voice came over the communication system. Captain Grant, move aside. This is our world. We will make the sacrifice. The largest Zelani ship, a beautiful crystal vessel that had been their flagship, accelerated past the damaged horizon and struck the Vorthach command ship at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The superweapon was destroyed, but so was the pride of the Zelani fleet. Lyra and her entire crew had died to save their world. The battle continued for 12 more hours. Without their command ship, the Vorthach forces began to lose coordination. Human tactics and Zelani technology proved to be an effective combination, and slowly, the tide of battle turned. On the surface, Martinez led a desperate charge against the Vorthach landing zone. Kalen fought beside him, the young Zelani moving with deadly efficiency. He had learned to be a warrior, but Grant wondered what they had all lost in the process. As the last Vorthach ship exploded in the darkness above Kepler 442b, Grant realized that victory had come at a terrible price. The gentle, peaceful Zelani had saved their world, but they were no longer the same people who had sent that first plea for help across the galaxy. They had learned to fight. They had learned to win. But they had also learned what it meant to lose people they loved in battle. The war was over, but for both species, nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months after the battle, Captain Grant stood once again on the observation deck of the Zelani military facility. The floating cities below looked much the same as before, their crystal spires catching the light of the twin suns. Could see the differences if she looked carefully. New defensive towers rose between the art galleries. Military ships patrolled the skies alongside the civilian transports. The gentle music that had once filled the air now mixed with the sounds of combat training. The Zelani had survived, but they had changed. The latest reports from the outer colonies are encouraging, said Ambassador Thren, approaching Grant with a datapad in his hands. The elderly Zelani diplomat moved differently now, with more purpose and confidence. His large eyes had retained their kindness, but there was steel in them that had never existed before. More Vorthach fleets retreating, Grant asked. 3 more systems have been liberated this month. The combination of human tactics and Zelani technology continues to prove effective against their forces. Grant nodded. The victory at Kepler 442b had been just the beginning. Word of the defeat had spread through the galaxy, and other worlds under Vorthach attack had begun asking for help. The alliance between humans and Zelani had grown into something much larger. Dr. Ross joined them at the window, carrying a thick report under her arm. I finished the cultural impact study you requested, Captain. What did you find? Grant asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The Zelani culture has fundamentally changed, Ross said. Not just their military capabilities, but their entire worldview. They think differently now, act differently. The younger generation especially has adopted many human characteristics. Through the window, they could see a group of young Zelani practicing combat maneuvers in the sky. Their movements were sharp and aggressive, nothing like the graceful dances their parents had performed. Is that necessarily bad? Thren asked. We are alive because we learn to fight. Our children will grow up free because we've found the strength to defend ourselves. It's not bad or good, Ross replied. It's just different. The question is whether you can maintain the best parts of your original culture while keeping the new strengths you've gained. Grant understood the dilemma. A peaceful, artistic Zelani had created one of the most beautiful civilizations in the galaxy. But that same peaceful nature had made them helpless against aggression. Now they could defend themselves, but at the cost of their innocence. A soft chime announced an incoming message. Dr. Murphy's face appeared on the nearest communication screen. He was aboard the UES Horizon, which was currently in orbit around a distant world helping another species resist Vorthach invasion. Captain Grant, I have the analysis you requested on the Vorthach prisoners we captured. What did you learn? Grant asked. Murphy's expression was troubled. The organic components I detected during the battle are actually conquered species. The Vorthach don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb them. They take the strongest individuals and force them to become part of their machine collective. Implications hit Grant immediately. So every Vorthach soldier was once a living being from some other world? Exactly. And here's the disturbing part. Some of the organic components we found were from species that have been missing for centuries. The Vorthach have been doing this for a very long time. Thren's face showed horror. You mean that every battle against them, we are fighting the enslaved survivors of their previous conquests? That's correct, Murphy confirmed. Which explains why they're so effective. They have the combined knowledge and abilities of dozens of different species, all controlled by the machine collective. Grant felt sick. Every Vorthach soldier they had killed had once been someone's family member, someone's friend. They had been victims, not villains. Is there any way to free them? She asked. We're working on it, Murphy replied. Dr. Sina and her medical team think they might be able to separate the organic components from the machinery. But it would have to be done very carefully, and we're not sure how much of the original personality would survive. After Murphy signed off, the three of them stood in silence for several minutes. The victory against the Vorthach suddenly felt less clear, less satisfying. Captain Grant, Thren said finally, we must tell our people about this. They deserve to know what they were really fighting, Grant agreed. But she worried about how the Zelani would handle the news. They had only recently learned to see the Vorthach as enemies. Learning that those enemies were actually victims might break their resolve to fight. Over the following weeks, the revelation about the Vorthach's true nature spread through both human and Zelani communities. The reaction was mixed. Some people felt guilt and demanded that all military action be stopped. Others argued that freeing the enslaved beings required defeating the machine collective first. Tech specialist White and his team of Zelani engineers worked frantically to develop new weapons that could disable Vorthach soldiers without killing them. It was incredibly difficult work, requiring precision that had never been attempted before. The problem is separating the machine parts from the organic parts without damaging either. White explained to Grant during one of his progress reports. It's like trying to perform surgery while the patient is shooting at you. Meanwhile, Sergeant. Martinez continued training new recruits, but his lessons had changed. Instead of teaching pure combat skills, he now emphasized capture techniques and non-lethal takedowns. Every enemy soldier you face was once someone like you, he told a group of young Zelani trainees. Your job is to free them, not destroy them. It's harder than killing, but it's what separates us from the machines. Kalen, who had become one of Martinez's best students, raised his hand. Sergeant, what if we cannot save them? What if the only choice is to let them kill us or kill them? First, Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then you make the hard choice and live with it. But you never stop trying to find a better way. The philosophical questions raised by the Vorthach's true nature sparked debates throughout the Alliance. Humans, with their long history of war and moral complexity, were better equipped to handle the gray areas. The Zelani, who had lived in a world of clear right and wrong, struggled more with the ambiguity. Dr. Ross spent months documenting these changes and their implications. Both species are evolving, she wrote in her final report. Humans are becoming more thoughtful about the use of force, while Zelani are learning that sometimes violence is necessary for a greater good. The result may be something better than either species was alone. The alliance continued to grow. More species joined the fight against the Vorthach, each bringing their own technologies and perspectives. The war became less about human tactics and Zelani weapons, more about cooperation between dozens of different civilizations. Captain, Grant found herself commanding not just human and Zelani forces, but beings from across the galaxy. Some were silicon-based creatures who thought in ways no organic mind could understand. Others were energy beings who existed as pure consciousness. All of them had learned the same lesson the Zelani had learned. Sometimes you had to fight to protect what you valued. A year after the first battle, Grant received word that the main Vorthach collective had been located. It was hidden in a massive space station at the center of their empire, protected by the largest fleet ever assembled. "This is it," Grant told her assembled commanders. "The source of the collective consciousness that controls all the enslaved beings. If we can destroy it, we might be able to free every species the Vorthach have absorbed." Ambassador Thren, now serving as the Alliance's diplomatic coordinator, looked at the tactical displays with eyes that had seen too much war. "How many ships will we need?" "Every ship we have," Grant replied. "And it still might not be enough." "Then we'll make it enough," said a new voice. Grant turned to see Commander Lyra enter the briefing room. The Zelani leader had somehow survived the ramming attack, though she bore scars that would never fully heal. "I thought you were dead," Grant said, embracing her ally. "So did I," Lyra replied. "But apparently humans aren't the only ones who are hard to kill." As the Alliance prepared for the final battle, Grant reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate plea for help. The Zelani had asked for someone to save them, but in the end, they had saved themselves. They had learned to fight not because they wanted to become warriors, but because they wanted to remain free. The galaxy was a more dangerous place than anyone had realized, but it was also full of beings willing to stand together against that danger. Humans had brought the knowledge of how to fight, but every species had brought something valuable to the Alliance, and perhaps most importantly, they had all learned that victory wasn't just about defeating your enemies. It was about remaining true to your values while doing what needed to be done. The final battle would come soon, but Grant was no longer worried about the outcome. The Alliance had become something greater than the sum of its parts, and that was a power even the Vorthach collective could not understand or defeat.